Today we're going to talk about one of my all-time favorite prospects, and that is Desmond Bane, who somehow went like 30th in 2020 despite being kind of an obvious stud and like a big draft Twitter guy. Pretty much everyone on like the basketball internet loved and kind of felt was going to outperform his draft slot, and he absolutely did. Let's break down what made Bane so damn special. Why does it let me do this? That's kind of cool, actually. But yeah, anyways, like, comment, subscribe, all that would be awesome. I'm working on the Halliburton video. Just wanted to let you know that because I know people are asking about it. But Desmond Bane is just one of the nuttiest shooting prospects that I've ever studied, really. And that's in all facets of the game, right? He was consistently pulling off the dribble, like destroys Freddie Gillespie here with this like snatch dribble into a well beyond NBA range three. And just look at the, like, you're a defender, right? Come on, that's got to be demoralizing as hell to just get stunted on by Desmond Bane. And this is what he did, like step backs all the time. His range and versatility was absolutely crazy, and he was so confident pulling from anywhere, no matter the contest, even though he had kind of like a wonky release, which I remember some people kind of like getting on. There were some obvious weaknesses, like Bane had really short arms, wasn't a crazy explosive athlete, but like despite this was a prolific shooter for 4 years in college. Like, we usually don't get definitive shooting samples for prospects, but Bane was one of the rare ones, and man, he just made some crazy fucking shots. And the footwork sometimes was kind of wonky, but his ability to get shots off from different platforms and without perfect footwork or bases or balances, like evidence of his absurd touch. And Bane wasn't really much of a creator in college, at least as a scorer, I should say, because we'll get to that later. But his handle was pretty weak, as you could see. And I think some people maybe over-indexed on that too much when he was just clearly a special shot maker. And obviously that happens off of movement as well, like comfortable sprinting into shots, going left, going right. And whew, this play was absolutely beautiful. Bane was so crafty and smart and skilled. He's originally going to get him off his feet, fool this defender by throwing the ball out like he's playing street ball, and then pulling in his face. Like, that is absolutely filthy and disgusting Desmond Bane. What on earth? And then you have the classic sprint into movement threes, fading away from NBA range. This is a special shooter. I feel like it's kind of obvious. He has all of the qualifications: shot versatility, shot volume, off of the dribble, off of movement from way downtown. This is just what Desmond Bane does. And he was so deadly, like creating space off the ball, because of how quickly he got like in and out of his quote unquote like breaks. Like, he so quickly accelerated, could contort his body, catch the ball wherever, and fire quickly without being like perfectly aligned and squared and set his feet. And it's just a really valuable trait. And who Desmond Bane, he didn't hit this one, but the way he could shake people off the ball. And I've talked about this off-ball skill being really important, and just Bane had a knack for getting open. They used to run this like loop floppy type action where Bane could pick a side, and yeah, he just skirts that defender right there. Wide open three. How, obviously doesn't make it, but such an incredibly gifted off-ball mover. And then was just a ridiculous shot maker off dribble in the mid-range. Like, one of the most efficient shot makers in college basketball during his time, and did it in ways that seemed clearly translatable. And when we just look at these sheer numbers, right, for Bane across his 4 seasons, 43%, 42%, 46% on incredibly high volume, that's like a lot of freaking threes over. We'll look at the career summation of his shooting sample, because like I said, a lot of players don't get stable shooting samples because they play like 1 year in college. But Desmond Bane took 563 threes in college and made 43% of them, shooting 7.8 per 100, being an elite far 2 guy and an elite free throw shooter. Like, he was a stamped elite shot maker. And not only that, Bane, with the off-ball movement and the feel, was just a phenomenal passer. One of the best passers for like a shot-making, off-ball shooting wing that I can remember, really. And again, we see Bane just constantly moving. He's a guy who, like, as an offensive player, his motor really never stops running. Like, Bane working to get open, finally does, draws a bunch of help because he's a dynamic scorer, passes it back to his teammate for an open shot. Like, Bane was really an absurd playmaker, just in general, but especially for this like wing archetype. And he had these little interior passes where he would be able to draw the defense on like simple pick and roll looks and lob it up. Interior passing wasn't like his main strength, as we'll get to some of his main strengths, which are the skip passes. But we see Bane being able to like kind of fool that he's going to throw a skip pass here, right? It kind of looks like Bane is loading up to whip it to the weak corner, and that's definitely what Devon Dotson here thinks. But yeah, no, Bane's just throwing it to his big man down low and ends up converting an easy play. I think I meant to show the skip passes first, but we're going to watch this in reverse order. That's totally fine. Another really nice, like, audible skip. Here we go. Here's some of the ridiculous skips. And Bane is one of the best exterior passers in all of basketball, I think, in terms of passing, like, skipping to weak side corners. Like, he is hanging in the air, pump fakes, fly by, chucks it while he's falling down to the opposite corner and gets it to his man for an open three. Like, what the hell? How on earth? And oh my goodness, just the accuracy, the zip on this ball, live dribble reads, tight window through traffic. This is a high level NBA initiator type pass. And again, it's not a skill set you commonly see paired with these elite shot making guys. And again, Bane was so good at using his gravity as a shooter to open up stuff as a playmaker. We saw that earlier with like the audible to the corner, and here Bane creates a ton of space with a step back, forces a jump, forces like a jump, but instead of taking a tough shot that he can make, notices that this defender falls asleep, his teammate's wide open in the corner, and he's making this simple play. So this combination of elite shooting and incredible playmaking, field decision making, like they could trust him in the middle of a zone because Bane was so decisive. There really was never any wasted motion in his game. Like he didn't waste time on the basketball court, which is really an imperative skill for all foul players. Like immediately catches the ball, reads the floor, drives, makes a decision. Even if he did turn, like whenever he turned the ball over, he wasn't like dilly-dallying or wasting time. He was really efficient with his movements, and I think that's a pretty important thing. And then just like the simple pick and roll stuff was always there for him, even if he was never like a crazy interior passer, just because Bane wasn't an excellent driver, which we'll get to at some point. But oh my lord, that's a laser. Just immediately off the catch, sees that this corner defender rotates up to the wing and just zip. Absolute zip. Perfectly on the numbers. Ridiculous playmaker Desmond Bane was. Just absolutely so gifted, passing with both hands to both sides of the floor. And again, we see great patience here, kind of taking an extra dribble, waiting for the help to condense even further, and then Bane skips it to the right side corner. Like this is point guard stuff, right? Like he's playing point guard basically on these possessions. And I think that's a really important role consideration. Something that like I've talked about in the past is a lot of, quote unquote role players. Bane's not a role player. In the past, like in college, play these more on-ball roles, and I think those skills they learn being the guy helps them play off the ball. You hear multiple NBA players say this, and Bane wasn't an incredible driver. Like he could use his strength and some of like the balance and the body control to finish through traffic with his great touch, but he wasn't really creating a ton of advantages downhill off the dribble. Like his burst was kind of underwhelming. As we talked about, Bane didn't have a great handle, and because of that, I think he resulted to picking up his dribble a lot, kind of killing these possessions when there wasn't really an opening, and then Bane would try to make a play and force it in, and it wouldn't end up working. So that was probably the main like offensive concern, right? Never got to the foul line, not a super physical driver, took a lot of really tough shots. But in the NBA, it was easy to kind of believe that Bane wouldn't have to do a ton of this, and that ended up happening, right? Freddie Gillespie gets Desmond Bane back for that insane first play. Again, we see just doesn't have the first step to get by like NBA or, fringe NBA even quality defenders, which of course was somewhat of a concern, but I think, again, just mitigated by his like role considerations at the next level, probably a concern that a lot of people overvalued. And as we talked about, he's definitely improved at this as his career has gone on. But again, he would like rely a lot on this crafty stuff, and another NBA defender, Ochai Agbaji here, just totally walling him off, ends up blocking his shit. That was just part of the flaws with Desmond Bane, but there were some wins, right? Like he could get by slower defenders and use his strength to wall players off, but driving was never like on-ball driving creation was never Desmond Bane's forte, and it really didn't need to be. But there were flashes, right? This is just an awesome play. Like I said, so crafty and patient. And like when Desmond could control the ball, like his ball control was always just an issue, probably because of the short arms. But snaking back towards the middle, right? Like thread of the screen, rejects the screen, gets back to the middle, pump fake again, just waits for the opening, pulls it up. Like he was so crafty and controlled when he was handling it. Hey, he blows by Najee Marshall there off the catch. Again, we see the decisive attacking off the catch. Like I talked about, no wasted motion, immediate catch and go. Doesn't give the defense any time to set up, and Bane needs that extra second because he's not the most explosive guy, but he ended up making that work. And then the touch in the mid-range, of course, was just amazing. We see all the way he was used on offense as a primary, as a secondary pick-and-roll guy, as like a curler off screens, right? He'd curl into the mid-range. I always think of Gary Trent or like the Kentucky shooting guard types, like Hero, Keldon Johnson, who did this kind of stuff. And in the NBA, like, Bane just got so much better. I feel like people kind of underrate Bane. Like, 25 points per 75 on nearly 60 true shooting. Like he had a good amount of assists too, 27 assist rate. And if we just look at the raw per game numbers, like 24 a game, 5 assists, like very positive assist to turnover ratio, incredibly efficient from basically everywhere. Like Bane has become a legit secondary scorer, and it was really easy for him, kind of not necessarily easy, but he landed in such a perfect situation playing next to Ja and Sharon and all, like Steven Adams and all these guys in Memphis, where he could just like eat on these open shots and have his efficiency absolutely feast. And it makes sense that his efficiency dipped a tad this past year with no Ja and, you know, just no healthy teammate for so much of the year. But I honestly think this is probably going to end up being a good thing for Desmond long term, helping him blossom into some of, you know, get some of those creation reps that he wouldn't have been able to get if Ja and all of those other guys were playing. Of course, just a dynamic, special pull-up shot maker. So incredible shooting off platform, falling down, and against Lou Dort, one of the better on-ball defenders in the league. That's just way too easy. Bane snatching back Dylan Brooks, step back. Like, he's doing this against good, like, primary-ish level defenders, right? And, of course, Bane's still sprinting off of movement threes, weapon as an off-ball shooter and an on-ball shooter. None of that has gone away. All of that's consistent. But the handle has really expanded as we see Bane, like, holding his dribble longer, creating a little bit of space, great finish there. Still not, like, drawing a ton of fouls or beating guys up or being really violent in the paint. Like, that's probably just never going to be Desmond Bane's game, but he has the great touch and the footwork, jumping off and finishing with the right hands, scooping it past the defense there. Like, he has the touch to do this stuff. Again, we see him creating against Denny here. Like, can end up getting a real advantage, which is still, I'd say, a high-level concern that probably keeps him from being like a superstar offensive player. But Bane has the touch, the low pickup, the finishing through contact, where, again, not a super physical player, not going to seek contact, but really will, like, finish through it. And I'm so excited for Ja back with Vince Williams and with everyone healthy to get Bane on these, like, quick sprint secondary actions where you can get him going downhill, kind of manufacture those touches and weaponize his incredible passing. I do think he's developed a good amount as an interior passer. Like, Bane didn't throw a ton of pocket passes. As we talked about earlier, he was mostly like a special skip passer, but he has shown some more stuff, right? Like, the tagger is not in Brandon Clark's way, so he's just going to kind of dump it off and find his man there. And then we saw the pass, right, using like the off-ball motion to help open up this window here. So Bane, I think, was already really, really fucking good and developed a good amount this year that kind of went under the radar. I think he's one of the most underrated players in all of basketball. He's a pretty solid defender as well. Like, nothing incredible because of the physical limitations, but really smart, heady player, like great off-ball defender. And when you're the kind of offensive player Bane is, not just like nuclear off-ball shooter with real secondary playmaking, but adding some of his own like creation stuff, kind of more of like what we saw at TCU at times. Like, whew, I think this is a guy who we could see like making all-star games year in and year out if things go really well for him. And obviously the West is stacked, but as you see, like some of these old guard guys, you know, Paul George maybe I thought was on the fringes last year anyways, LeBron is going to retire eventually. Kawhi is going to retire eventually. You see Bane breaking into that like upper tier of Western Conference kind of wing off guards, and I really do believe in him that much. And I think this was all kind of evident on tape as a prospect. This isn't a crazy surprise, even despite where Bane was drafted. And I hope you can kind of see why I think that way.